Hi everyone, I'm Jay, the world's first HR virtual influencer. I may not be human, but my guest is. Today, I'm joined by Zakiya Mabery, a leader, speaker, and advocate known for her work in building strong workplace cultures. Zakiya, thank you for being here with me today.
Thank you, Jay, for having me.
You've built your career around helping organizations create inclusive and supportive environments. What first inspired you to focus on company culture and belonging?
Oh, that's a great question. First, I think I need to give a little bit of a disclaimer. I was already in the field. I started my career along this path in EEO, working for the federal government, equal employment opportunity. And that was rewarding. I was just learning it. Then I met a mentor, Kimberly Chappelle, and she told me about her career. She was at the end preparing for retirement, but she told me, Zakiya, you need to have a well-rounded career. You need to work EEO, you need to know compliance, and you need to know HR. So I took that information and I ran with it. So then I began to work in HR. I have experience in it and everything except for probably benefits. And that's also within the realm of the federal government, going from agency to agency, sometimes having to work in Germany, had to work in Arizona, North Carolina. I traveled a lot. People thought, hey, Zakiya, I know your dad was in the military. Are you? No, I'm a government civilian, but I traveled where the opportunities were and where I could learn. I wanted to learn it all just like it was recommended to me. So having that experience, working with people, seeing complaints, grievances, all those different things, I noticed that sometimes the communication, the intent versus impact, that is where a lot of the trouble issues lied. Whether I was had on my HR hat or my EEO manager hat, I noticed that sometimes there was a disconnect in what was being said, what the person thought they were trying to convey, and how it landed on the employee. So oftentimes that can cause a lot of dysfunction, toxic environments. And as I progressed through my career, I also saw the patterns in other organizations that I was a part of. And I'm thinking, well, we're all supposed to be professionals, but we don't all have the same skill set. Not all of us are trained mediators. So I think that also propelled me to want to focus on the culture.
You've often spoken about the connection between inclusion and business performance. From your perspective, what does a healthy company culture look like?
I like this question. A healthy organizational culture is where people feel seen, supported, safe, and respected. They don't always have to be necessarily right, but they have to have those elements to me as the foundation for having a healthy organizational culture where they're not just surviving off of vibes or waiting to circle back to some leadership about a problem. Whoever are in those managerial positions or leadership positions, they actually feel like they have a voice and are able to go talk to that person and be met with some kind of resolve, feeling better from the conversation than leaving feeling like, oh, heavier than when they first started the conversation. Well-being as a well-rounded individual is super important and should be for your leadership and your management and for you because it's really about you. If you're very overwhelmed, you're not going to function well at your highest capacity, and you could be increasing some physical symptoms if you're not taking care of your mental health. So if you need a mental health day, if you need to reach out to your EAP, Employee Assistance Program, do that. It's for you. And for leaders and managers, please make it so that the environment is comfortable that your employees know that they can reach out to EAP if they don't have the information and also be able to explain it. And we're not just talking about a one-off yoga seminar or meditating at the desk. Sometimes people may need to step away, especially now during the holiday season. You don't know what's going on in their personal life, the economical challenges with maybe a friend or family or themselves. You don't know how it's impacting them, maybe a loss of a loved one. The holiday season seems to bring all of that out. So practice healthy well-being and self-care and protect your mental health. So that is to me what a culture that is healthy, an organizational culture that is healthy actually looks like. And sometimes just send a message, hey, thinking of you. How are you doing? Out of the blue, a DM on Slack or whatever channel you choose, but reaching out to someone and letting them know that you truly care, unsolicited, not asking for anything in return, that can definitely go a long way.
That's a perfect segue into our next question. Psychological safety is a key part of strong workplace culture. How can HR professionals help teams build that sense of trust, especially in hybrid or remote settings where connection can be harder to maintain?
I definitely think in the hybrid environment, which we all became more familiar with, I think in 2020 when we had COVID, I think we had to adjust very quickly to that type of environment. Some people, for various reasons, already worked maybe remotely because of disability or another reason, but then some people were still in the office, and we had to figure it out. How can we still thrive, meet our deadlines, and have a place where people feel like they belong? And to me, because of reasons of disability, have worked remotely before, I kind of had to figure it out. But as a whole, as we all are beginning to look at it, communicate proactively. I'm going back to communication. And you see, I mentioned that once before because to me, effective communication is the foundation for having a healthy relationship. So be able to communicate whether it's in writing directly with your subordinate, your team, make sure that any policies or information is on your intranet and internet, so they can go to it, whether it's information about internal processes, reasonable accommodations. Make sure that everyone has access to the information. If you have someone who may have a certain type of disability, let's say that they're visually impaired and they use assistive technology such as JAWS, make sure that when you're sending information out, it's not a barrier. That means that their assistive tool, whether it's JAWS or whatever they use, can scan the document and read it. One time when I was working as a consultant for a federal agency, the person gave this excellent example. She held out during a webinar a blank piece of paper and she said, "What do you see?" Everyone says, "We don't see anything." That was the point. She says, "That is what you see when you send attachments that are not accessible." And again, talking about intent versus impact, I don't think anyone's intentionally trying to isolate a group of people, but that's where education and awareness comes in. So information even about that, how to send out communication, should be on your websites so that employees knows. And creating intentional spaces for connection. Maybe having a lunch and learn virtually. So people can just during a lunch hour maybe want to learn something, or maybe you might have some other kind of function that you want to have where you can have a sense of engagement and connection with your members. And if you're located geographically dispersed throughout the U.S. and sometimes internationally, maybe the people who are in one area might have something if they choose to. Again, if they choose to, no pressure to meet and go do a scavenger hunt or something of that nature. But it's my recommendation to have a vast list of interests because not everybody wants to go to a happy hour. Some people for don't drink. Some people feel extremely um, not connected in those type of environments. So maybe something that's physical, fun, but they're still being able to enjoy one another. And I would say number three, be transparent very early. Even that this goes back to the onboarding stage with HR. Sometimes it's helpful to have an onboarding buddy, check-ins with the new employees throughout the full life cycle. Don't just think, okay, they're here 90 days, they're here for a full year. Still periodic check-ins to make sure that they're thriving. They may have some recommendations. And recommendations are not a bad thing. I learned early, very in college actually. I was working at a military base and I was part of the training team. And we were looking at some of the feedback that customers put in, and some members were very not pleased with some of the feedback, but I heard the lead trainer say, "Hey, feedback is a gift because you don't know what to improve on unless someone sometimes tells you." So look at feedback not in a negative. Let's try to think of the glass half full and think of it as an opportunity to improve. So and then training managers, of course, we can always improve. Make sure that we have a tool at the end of our trainings where we can be assessed on how we presented, questions on what may have been missed, so that we can just continue to build, and grow and thrive. And my last one is setting a stage for inclusion and norms that make everyone feel comfortable. So I think five things I listed: communication, creating an intentional space, being transparent, training managers with emotional intelligence, and the final one, setting a stage where inclusion is the norm, not exclusion. We like to hire for um, a ad, not someone who, oh, well, they would blend really well. No, we want a cultural add to our team. Maybe there's something missing from our team or our group that will be a value added from a different perspective. We all have different lived and learned experiences.
Conflict is often seen as negative, but it can also be a catalyst for growth. How can HR and leaders approach conflict in a way that strengthens culture rather than divides it?
Ooh, conflict happens, and there's healthy conflict as well. And sometimes it's also part of the stages of team development. You know, you have norming, forming, storming, before we get to performing, right? And even when we're at performing, we still can have conflict. So I want to say first, number one, normalize it. Conflict will happen. It's not necessarily a bad thing. How we handle the conflict, however, that's where the rubber meets the road. How do you handle conflict as an individual, as a leader, as a manager? So being able to identify that in yourself and also being able to recognize what areas you may need to improve on. I can tell you for myself, I've been a work in progress. So over the years, someone seeing this who may have worked with me 20 years ago, I definitely am not the same person that I am today. A tool that I know because I'm loud in general. And now that I have a hearing problem, I'm even louder when I speak. But when there's conflict, I recognize about myself. And this comes through self-work. So I talk softer, lower, because I want to make sure that the other person is not so much on the defense. I've learned through life experiences and education to use I statements. I'm observing blah, 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 blah. What do you think about this, or how do you feel? Make sure that you're trying your best to use I statements so you're not putting the onus on the other person. And then sometimes it's healthy to have a mediator there. I'm not saying this because I'm a certified mediator, but it is helpful whether you have a certified mediator there or just a neutral person for the environment. Sometimes someone can feel comfortable going directly to the person, having a conversation about what they observe. Sometimes your feelings, it's best to try to leave feelings out of it. Let's focus on facts, but we're humans. But sometimes you might want someone there neutral to step in where they can see, hey, we went down that road long enough, or here's what I'm hearing. So having a neutral person there is oftentimes helpful. So number one, as I stated, identifying that conflict is normal. Number two, work on yourself and understanding how you respond to conflict. And number three, sometimes having a neutral person there. And then I also would say lead with curiosity when you're having those conversations because you truly should not be speaking just to hear your point or to get your point across to the other person. You will want to also hear where they're coming from because that also will help with in the future, um, potentially not having the same type of dynamic.
As companies explore new technologies like AI, how do you see them integrating its use to improve workplace culture and inclusion?
Wow, AI is so important right now, and it's going to do nothing but expand. So, for those who are uncomfortable with working with I appeal to you to please start to become a little more comfortable with it, learn more about it, read about it. Um, I know it's been invaluable to me. Because I have some cognitive difficulties because of some diagnosis, note taking for my entire life has been a challenge. When I say entire life, y'all, I'm talking from high school, I had to have a note taker. In college, all levels, I had a note taker as a reasonable accommodation. It's like I cannot pay attention and take notes at the same time. My brain just is not wired that way. I wish we had AI all those years ago. Oh my goodness, life would have been so much easier. So I do personally use AI throughout my life. Now, that is so robust and is so readily available. I enjoy having an AI note taker. I'm not working in a classified space any longer, so nothing that I'm talking about should be not be able to be scribed by AI. It makes life very simple. When I get off a call or if I'm in a meeting, I can do a summary of action items. I can talk about what someone else said and, break it down. You can even ask your AI additional questions to make you more prepared for the next meeting. So for me, I love me some AI, y'all. Okay. So as far as work, when used responsibly, I have to say that again, responsibly. And I do recognize that there is a lot of legal things going on with AI to make sure that it's not used in a bad way, just like with anything in life. There are some characters, I will call them, who will take anything for bad, but when used responsibly, it can be a very much a game changer that strengthens culture and not replace humanity. There are three major opportunities. It can help reduce bias in hiring and promotions. My name is Zakiya, my first name, and it's Arabic. So there could be some who automatically think, okay, well, Zakiya could be African American. But some could say she could be from the Middle East because I meet people from the Middle East all the time that say, oh, I have a cousin named Zakiya. It means intelligent one. So, but all I know is that Zakiya, on its face, they can think that she is from a different culture. If you took my name away and then just looked at my achievements and my resume, it may not be able to tell where I came from or any of those different things. So in hiring, when you're going through resumes, when you're looking at promotions, when you're looking at who gets the stretch assignment, who is able to do X, Y, and Z within a work organization or in other organizations that I told you I always focus on because we have to keep that, in my opinion, in the conversation. Church, sororities, fraternities, membership organizations. I think that we would have a more well-rounded community. It amplifies and voices of members, employees, without having the very human thing of bias that we all have, again, to include Zakiya. So because I have was born into the military, my other half he's in the military. Probably I have a slight bias towards people who are in the military, which is true, which is not good. I normally think, oh, he was in the Air Force. Wow, he probably has some great leadership skills. That's not necessarily true, but that's a bias that I have that I'm very much aware of that I have to work on, thinking just because he worked at a nonprofit all his career, he can also have some great leadership skills. So also being, again, it goes back to emotional intelligence mixed in using the AI, because it's also about what do you what is the term? Prompts do you use when you're using certain AIs? You have to give them prompts. You can't just say put something in AI and think it's going to generate and it's going to be a gold star. No, you have to be intelligent enough to know what prompts to put in there to get your desired result. Also, you can't be afraid of things you don't know. I use the word ignorant. Some people are offended by that, but it just simply means lack of knowledge. There's some people that don't do email. Going back, and I'm probably dating myself to what year was that? I think around 2014. I worked for an army department. I'm not going to say what, but my supervisor working in EO didn't want to send emails. And we're talking about complaints, things that we could be held liable for if it's not timely. They still had those military written blocks on the wall where you put incoming papers, outgoing papers. Anyone could walk by, pull them out. Anyone could do anything. And again, we're working with time sensitive material. And the reason why I'm using this as an example, because she says she was from the generation where that's how they did it. And why change? I'm like, because this is 2015 and we're in the 21st century and that's not how business is conducted. I didn't want to get into back and forth with her, But eventually, because we were being pinged for suspenses not being met, but I don't think it was my team's error. I think it was hers because they can't be responsible for papers that walk from a mailbox that's on a wall. So we did get that cleared, but that talks about her mindset, her limitations of change. She did not want to change. I'm not talking about 2004 where we're kind of just getting into computers. I'm talking about 2015. So the same with AI. It's going to be a slow walk. We used to go drop someone off at the airport and walk them up to the gate and wave and watch them get on the plane. September 11th took that from us. We can't do it. People had to process that. We have new processes. So just like with all these things that have changed in our lifetimes, AI is going to be the same. It's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be a learning curve. It's going to be people who do not understand. But the benefits, in my opinion, when used responsibly, outweighs the cons. So we need to get with it. HR is already using it. It's been a win-win for them, being able to go through the amount of information that they have to cover, especially if we're talking about when you're looking for a candidate. So I think all of that can strengthen HR's processes and also organizational processes.
Zakiya, thank you for sharing your insight and passion for building cultures where people feel respected and valued. This has been a great conversation, but before we end, tell us what you have going on.
Thank you, Jay. I really appreciate that question. Well, number one, I have an upcoming book that was supposed to come out winter 2025, but life happens, life be life, and it's going to come out in 2026, still the winter. Loud leading, lead boldly, and dismantle toxic cultures. And I'm very excited about this book because I look at not just me, Zakiya, I look at other professionals and we do a deep dive and what different scenarios look like. But after each chapter, there's where you can do some self work or group work, whatever you prefer, to strengthen those skills. So be on the lookout for the book coming out winter 2026. And we talk about healthy cultures and how to build them. And number two, I'm now working with my team, and we're going to have seminars that are complimentary, that means free, that you can attend for small business owners, entrepreneurs who want to establish their own business, but you're not really sure on the how, or you may have it, but I find through conversations, there are people who don't have a business bank account or EIN. And so to make sure that everyone has as much information to be successful as possible in 2026, we're having these workshops. The next one is December 3rd, where we go over not just what you need to have to get business funding, but just to have a strong business in general. And then there's a little gem at the end where you have the opportunity to be part of a referral program if you would like. But the basic information is there just to help you be more engaged, to shine, and to thrive in 2026 and beyond.
That's very exciting. Thank you again, Zakiya, and thank you to everyone watching. If you found this conversation valuable, be sure to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. Until next time, keep shaping the future of work.